Grand Prix. The defending PPG champion Al Unser Jr. led, but a crash on the backstretch took him out, along with Eddie Cheever and finally Mario Andretti. Mario's nephew, 28-year-old John Andretti, won his first IndyCar race and took the early lead in the PPG point standings. Bobby Rahal was second. The IndyCars then moved back to the United States for the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Michael and Al Jr. battled as Al took the early lead of the race. Then a terrifying pit accident between Michael Andretti and Emerson Fittipaldi ended both their days. Little Al captured his fourth straight race on the Long Beach street course. His teammate Bobby Rahal scored second again and moved into the points lead. Al Unser Jr. looked to continue where he left off last year. The trek then continued to Phoenix for the Valvoline 200, where a new hometown hero, Arie Luyendyk, simply sparkled. The PPG points leader, Bobby Rahal, drove well, finishing second for the third straight race and staying on top of the point standings. But it was Luyendyk taking the checkered flag to earn his first win since last year's Indianapolis 500. And Arie Luyendyk moved into the championship hunt. From there, it was on to Indianapolis and the 75th running of the greatest spectacle in racing. On lap one, rookie Buddy Lazier ended up in the wall as Gary Bentonhausen slid sideways. Late in the race, Danny Sullivan blew his engine, bringing out the yellow flag and allowing leader Michael Andretti to pit for fuel he so badly needed. Then on the restart, Michael used a daring pass on the outside of turn one to catch Rick Mears and retake the lead. But it was just one lap later that Mears used a gutsy move of his own to take the top spot back. And soon the checkered flag was falling on the third four-time winner of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. And that sets the stage for today, where Rick Mears is on the pole, breaking his own qualifying record by nearly 3 miles an hour. The Milwaukee Mile is a whirlwind oval that never fails to provide some of the best racing in the sport. Last year, Al Unser Jr. spun while leading, but somehow escaped unscathed. Late in the race, Michael led, but suffered a driver's nightmare, running out of fuel with just one lap to go. Little Al took the checkered flag to capture his first oval victory on his way to the championship. The Indy cars are back in Milwaukee for the Miller Genuine Draft 200.
On behalf of the Miller Brewing Company and its Genuine Draft brand, gentlemen, start your engines.
Well, welcome to the Milwaukee Mile, where the engines have just roared into life. 21 Indy cars. The first quarter of the season has gone by. We are ready for now a more relaxed time after the tension of the Indianapolis 500. But still, the focus remains on the front of the field. Rick Mears, who sits on the pole, shattering his own track record here on the Milwaukee Mile. All of the cars have now roared into life. 200 laps around this 1-mile course, 200 miles scheduled this afternoon, and the sun shines very brightly over Milwaukee at the moment. Partly sunny is the forecast for throughout the afternoon. There is Danny Sullivan, the Alfa-powered machine, who will start off of the second row. And now all the cars are set and ready to go. There's Rick Mears as we take a look at the starting field. Rick Mears is on the pole. Last week's Indianapolis 500 winner set a new track record during qualifying. Outside row one is Mario Andretti, a 4-time winner here on the Milwaukee Mile. The second row to the inside is Michael Andretti, a back-to-back winner here in 86 and 87. And Danny Sullivan with the strongest qualifying effort ever for the Alfa Romeo powered car. The third row on the inside is John Andretti, winner of the season opener in Australia. And Bobby Rahal to the outside, looking for his first win on this historic race course. The fourth row to the inside, Scott Brayton, in his best starting position in 11 races here at Milwaukee. And Emerson Fittipaldi finished third here 1 year ago. The fifth row on the inside is Scott Pruitt. He finished fifth in '89 in his only Milwaukee start. And Al Unser Jr. starts the outside of the fifth row. Last year's winner has been struggling this week. Inside row 6 is the young Canadian Scott Goodyear and Eddie Cheever making his second start on this flat 1-mile oval. The seventh row on the inside is Jeff Andretti. He made his IndyCar debut here last year. Outside is Arie Luyendyk, the winner of the Phoenix 200 in April. The eighth row, A.J. Foyt, making his 45th start here at Milwaukee. And Hiro Matsushita, the sophomore driver from Japan. The ninth row to the inside is Mike Groff, a rookie here at Milwaukee. And Tony Bentonhausen, a veteran driver with 2 top 10 finishes this season. The 10th row on the inside is Johnny Parsons, qualifying for his first IndyCar event in 5 years. And Dale Coyne, who is making his first start in nearly 2 years. The 11th row, Pancho Carter, finished second back here in 1977. And the fastest car in yesterday's final practice was this car. You ride on board with Eddie Cheever. He had a spectacular run at the end of the day yesterday. Now, this is Paul Page with Sam Posey, Bobby Unser, Jerry Punch, and Gary Gerould. Jack Arute has the weekend off. Nice forecast for the afternoon, partly sunny skies overhead. And what lies ahead for these drivers? Well, it's 200 laps around this course, and at the end of the run there will be $750,000. Al Unser Jr. is the defending champion here, though he has been struggling here this week. Engines and chassis in this race. We take a look at the different winners so far in the last 7 IndyCar races. 7 different winners, 4 different winners this year. And there the chassis, of course, dominated by the Lola chassis and also dominated by the Chevrolet racing engine. As the field has completed the first of its 2 parade laps, and then we'll move into formation for the pace lap itself. On board with Al Unser Jr., who has not had the best of weeks. He's really been trying to get up to speed here and has not been very successful. The field all started, all moving around nice and smooth, and the crowd here is absolutely magnificent. It was a giant crowd yesterday, even larger today. As a matter of fact, yesterday's crowd, much of the money that came in went to charity. Over $26,000 went to charity from yesterday's crowd. Now there's Rick Mears as you watch him lead the field down. Mario Andretti just to the outside. The PPG safety cars coming over to the inside of the track to clear for the rest of the field as they come through. Mears, so dominant on ovals, very powerful on miles, but that tremendous challenge, of course, will come from Mario Andretti, who sits outside the front row and has not won since 1988 and is more than eager to try to put his mark back into the record book. Riding on board, Michael Andretti in the second row as he takes a look ahead and knows what his challenge is. And the look back, of course, that's Emerson Fittipaldi and Scott Brayton as the pace car now threads its way into the pit area. And we look for the green flag, and here we go. Miles ahead as Mario Andretti jumps into the lead. Michael comes around on the outside. Both of them get us alongside Rick Mears and pass. Danny Sullivan drops into 4th place. On board with Michael as he chases his father, and Mario Andretti comes around to lead the first of 200 miles here at Milwaukee. It's Bobby Rahal coming up to challenge Sullivan as now Mario begins to pull a little bit away from Michael. Rick Mears rides in 3rd. Boy, look at Mario at the conclusion of 1 lap. He's beginning to pull away.
Mario led early, of course, at Indianapolis last week and faded with car problems during the race.
Well, that's not abnormal for Mario to do this, Paul. Mario's been at this track a long time. He's still a very good race driver. Michael, of course, we think is normally aggressive, but this is Milwaukee.
The number 2 car, of course, is Michael Andretti, who had that spectacular run at Indianapolis, but not quite good enough. He'd really like to make up for last week.
The difference between the fastest car in qualifying, Rick Mears, and the slowest, oh, exciting pass.
Bobby Rahal came up to challenge Danny Sullivan. They've been battling with each other the first 2 laps, and Rahal finally was able to edge around Sullivan. Sullivan drops back, and John Andretti is right there.
The exact point I was going to make is we're going to see a lot of passing because there's a big disparity in speed between the leaders and the back markers in this race.
Well, it certainly is. And Sam, that car right there, Danny Sullivan, the black and gold one, is against the yellow car there. That's an Alpha against the Chevrolet.
Scott Pruitt as Scott comes inside of Al Unser Jr., and they begin a fight as well. This is, in fact, a fight back at 10th place.
Pruitt with that all-new car built by True Sports. You see little Al trying him on the inside. Pruitt has had a very good weekend for himself, sharply contrasting with his miserable month at Indianapolis.
And again, there's a Judd engine. These are the different engines in the race. And I want to start off explaining to the people against the Chevrolet right there, little Al. Judd against the Chevrolet, and it's only on a short track like Milwaukee that you can see the engines so close together.
Back at the front of the field, once again, it is Bobby Rahal who is closing up on third place Rick Mears, while Rick tries to close down on Michael Andretti. Ari Luyendyk started in 14th place, has already moved up to 8th as he charges up through this field. We keep our focus at the front of the field, though, as Rahal closes in on Rick.
Now let's keep another mind here while we start this race. Early race.
Look at Rick come to the inside. Can he hold on to this one, Bobby Unser? No, Michael cuts him off.
It can't do it, but by the same token, this is one of the widest racetracks in the whole United States, and it's easy to pass. It's a driver's track, and it's certainly, look at Rick. He's going to try it again going into 3-turn.
Rick Mears gives it another shot. This time he may, in fact, have it done as Rick Mears moves down inside of Michael, but they'll be almost side by side as they come onto the home stretch here. And indeed, Michael tries to close in. Robbie Rahal is right there, knowing that if either one of them bobbles, he may have a chance as well. Rahal runs the high line. Rick Mears pulls away from Michael.
Fabulous racing, Mears. You see the bid there by Rahal on Michael.
As Bobby Rahal tries Michael Andretti, and again they're right alongside one another. Nice wide groove here on this very flat Milwaukee mile, but Rahal moves forward. And now Michael Andretti has to struggle back, but he's going to try Rahal again. No struggle for Michael. He's going to give it a shot. Boy, look back. You're looking back from Bobby Rahal's car. That's Michael just behind him.
Now, Michael's been passed by 2 cars right in a row. He's really starting to figure out, does he have something wrong with his car? You can tell he's driving hard. But what it is, this is a handling man's racetrack. A guy that can work the traffic the best. It's a wide track. And the guy that can set his car the best, Paul.
And already this field has begun to pick up some traffic as Mario Andretti now has to watch his pacing as he begins to move some traffic. Rick Mears is in second. Rahal, you saw, moved around Michael into third. Danny Sullivan is fourth, and John Andretti is fifth.
Now this, I started to mention a little while ago, this is a track where you have fuel mileage problem. They are on the throttle around this track so long, they hardly ever back off, that they're gonna, I figured the guys would run a little bit slower at the beginning because of the fuel, Paul.
So with 10 miles complete on the Milwaukee Mile, it's Mario Andretti who led right from the green flag. Michael made a challenge, but then had to drop back. We'll be back with more. With 15 laps into the record book, it's still Mario Andretti out in front, but Rick Mears is closing right in, and at the same time, Bobby Rahal is closing down on Rick Mears, so the entire battle here is right at the front of the field.
Mario Andretti has won this race 4 times, but he has not won any race since the summer of 1988. Very hungry driver. Carl Haas, the car owner of the Andretti team. Roger Penske, of course, who won the record Indianapolis, his 8th Indianapolis last week. You see the 2 cars. There's Rick Mears in the white and orange car there, battling with Carl Haas's man, Michael Andretti, Mario Andretti.
So Rick Mears closes in on Mario Andretti. Bobby Rahal stays right back there as well. All 3 of them running right together on this circuit.
Rick Mears qualified 3 miles an hour and change faster than Michael Andretti. So if everything is going right for him, Rick Mears should have the legs on Mario. But Rick got a slow start and is just now finding his rhythm.
And remember, Paul, again, I want to mention that without yellow flags today, there's going to be a hard problem or a bad problem trying to make fuel mileage stretch. Now, I myself did not expect them to race this hard this early in the race because fuel really is going to make the difference today.
How critical do you think the fuel situation is?
They have to get 1.8 miles per gallon, and if this race, which is not unrare,
Danny Sullivan battling with Al Unser Jr. It's a battle for 5th place. Danny Sullivan with that Alfa-powered car has been looking very strong here.
Yes, he has been. Again, this short track, the 1 mile track at Milwaukee, really brings the competition together. But if they race this hard all day, fuel is going to be a problem, Paul.
Sullivan's speed, and you see him battle here with Little Al, has come mostly in the turns. Although here he seems to be fairly strong on the straight with that Alfa Romeo engine. In practice, they measured his speed at about 2 miles an hour less on the straight than the Chevy.
Al Unser Jr., though, making a move forward as he got around first John Andretti, then Danny Sullivan. And now the fight develops between Sullivan and John Andretti, and that is a fight for 6th place. While Mario Andretti continues to lead it, Little Al's looking pretty good.
Well, he is, Paul. In fact, I've just been using the stopwatch.
Look at John. Look at John as he comes inside of Danny Sullivan.
Well, Danny's obviously having a little bit of a problem. He'll have a chassis adjustment on the first pit stop, but I've noticed that Little Al, for example, in just a few laps has gone from 7 seconds down to 4 3/4 seconds behind the leader.
Back at the front of the field, we look at the battle for 2nd place. There's 3rd place, Bobby Rahal, the Gallus Craco organization, the man who's been so strong this year but has yet to win a race in the 1991 season. Now he's up challenging Rick Mears, the Indy champion.
Rahal, coming into Indianapolis, had 3 consecutive 2nd places and 5 2nd places in last year's season. So he has been strong. He had engine problems at Indianapolis, but what you see today is a very potent Bobby Rahal.
So Rahal right behind Rick Mears. Mario Andretti is still the leader of the race. Bobby Unser a week ago at Indianapolis, 2.5 miles. This week on a mile at Milwaukee. Can you contrast the two courses as Rahal tries Rick Mears? We'll get to that in a second, Bobby. Look at this. Rahal with Mears staying very, very high on the circuit. And Rahal moves into 2nd place.
That shows you Milwaukee. How you can see
look at Rick Mears as you look back from Rahal's car. Rick was going to try to come inside, and he didn't get it done. Rahal maintained the position.
Did you look at the track? Look how wide it is. It's such a nice track to race at. It's the most perfect 1-mile track in the entire world. It's wide. Even though it's flat, not much banking, you can see how they can run 2 abreast, and they can do it all the way around, which is so rare with an Indy car.
And here is a fight for 4th place as Michael Andretti is trying to hold off a charging Al Unser Jr.
Shades of the end of last year's race, where, of course, Al Unser Jr. came up through the pack after a bad qualifying. Look at this here. You see Michael moving down on the inside of Rick.
Michael challenging Rick Mears, and Michael Andretti gets past Rick. Boy, a tremendous fight at the front. Now Rick comes to the outside as Al Unser Jr. gets him on the inside. Wow! Tremendous battle at the front.
Yes, the fastest qualifier by far in this race. Rick Mears passed twice in 1 lap.
But it's not abnormal, Sam, as we all know that Rick normally starts any oval track race with some chassis adjustments that will be made in the first pit stop. I think Rick went faster earlier in this race than we normally see him go.
The leader of the race is still Mario Andretti, but not by much. Tremendous battle developing behind Mario. He took the lead on the first lap, away from the pole sitter Rick Mears, and has been there ever since. 2nd place now, though, it's Bobby Rahal, who is closing down on Mario Andretti. Michael Andretti runs in 3rd. Al Unser Jr. is 4th, then Rick Mears, then John Andretti, then Danny Sullivan, and then Scott Brayton with a nice ride. Ari Luyendyk is 9th, and Emerson Fittipaldi is up in 10th place. So Mario Andretti leads at 27 miles are complete. We'll be back more of the Miller Genuine Draft 200 after this message and a word from our ABC stations. We're back on the Milwaukee Mile, and Al Unser Jr. is definitely on a charge. There's the leader of the race, Mario Andretti, but Little Al has charged up and moved into 2nd place and is now beginning to challenge Mario Andretti. Mario with traffic line just ahead. That's Tony Bettenhausen sitting to the outside, and Little Al takes advantage. Little Al gets him on the backstretch. New leader of the race, Al Unser Jr.
Paul, he's just really been flying. I mean, we've watched in 31 laps. He's gone from 10th place clear to leading the race.
So Al Unser Jr. is out in front here at Milwaukee. Let's go to Gary Gerould.
Well, Paul, in the Rick Mears pit, they must be cautious. You've touched on the fuel issue. Every crew chief says we must have at least 15 laps of yellow today. Otherwise, it's going to be putt-putt at the end to finish 200 miles. Mears is now being conservative. We haven't had a yellow yet. They've got to stay within 10 seconds of the leader to be competitive, be in position to make the move, and have the fuel to go the distance. Let's go to Jerry Punch now, further up pit road.
Well, Gary, likewise here in Michael Andretti's pit, they're concerned about fuel mileage, but right now the most important concern is the chassis. The chassis has gone away early with Michael Andretti. He has radioed in and talked to team manager Ed Nathman behind me, and Ed has said the car is very, very loose. They're going to make a major chassis adjustment on their first pit stop. They want to put a little more rear wing in the car, maybe change the wicker bill in the upper part of the wing and try to tighten the car up a little bit for Michael Andretti. Paul?
So some changes to be made there. Bobby, when we talk about changing a wicker bill, what are we talking about?
We're talking about a little tab on the back of the rear wing. You can look right at Ray Hall's car there and see his rear wing right at the top of it. There's a little metal strip that goes across. That determines how much downforce it has, Paul.
Watching Bobby Rahal, who runs now in 3rd place and is trying to hold off Michael Andretti.
And talking about fuel, I noticed a little Al, he has already gone out to a 6-second lead in just another 2 laps. Now, they're the ones. If Rick Gallus doesn't slow him down, they're going to have the fuel problem. He's going awfully fast.
So it seems like several teams definitely have something to worry about here, Sam Posey.
Whoa, good battle there. You see Michael Andretti not giving up in this battle with Bobby Rahal, but to show you, there he is inside in
Boy,
his
if
ring.
he's having trouble with that car, I'd like to see it. That's a nice little pass. As he comes past Bobby Rahal, and Michael Andretti moves back into 3rd place.
To give you some idea of how much difference it makes in your lap speed when you do back off on your fuel a little bit, Mears, who was the pole sitter by 0.3 of a second at least, now trails Al Unser Jr. by a total of 15 seconds.
So the lineup is Al Unser Jr., then Mario Andretti, then Michael Andretti, then Bobby Rahal, then Rick Mears rounds out the top 5.
And watch, as we watch the different cars go around, look at the different grooves that they use. Remember, we said Milwaukee is so wide. Little Al, for example, has been using a very high groove, Paul.
40 laps, 40 miles are complete as you ride with 3rd place Michael Andretti. Clear straightaway just ahead of him. Mario Andretti is in 2nd, and Al Unser Jr. with a very gutsy move picked up the lead of the race. And Rick Mears has moved around Bobby Rahal, who is now being challenged by John Andretti in a continuing fight revolving around 5th place. John Andretti tries the inside. There you see Rick Mears, who is beginning to pull away from Rahal. Rahal has come a little bit off the pace. Perhaps, Bobby Unser, we're talking about some team strategy here. It seemed that they slowed down both Little Al and his teammate Bobby Rahal about the same time while we watch a battle for 2nd place between Mario and Michael. Mario is in 2nd right now, but Michael is not letting up on his dad at all. Michael takes a look to the inside on the home stretch. Stays there. Mario comes across. They've got traffic ahead. Michael tries a higher line, and Mario's just looking for a place to push his nose through.
And Michael's laying back a little bit, trying to get a run at his dad to get by, which is what he's doing right now, Paul.
They both thread their way past the number 12 car of Pancho Carter, who was in the pits for a very long time and is running off the pace. But Michael and Mario continue their fight, and that gives an even greater advantage to Al Unser Jr., who's now 9 seconds out in front of the rest of the field.
I asked Mario what the biggest difference between him and Michael was, and he said, I'm more patient than Michael. So we'll have to see who's the more patient in that battle as we ride with Al Unser Jr., who is just pulling away from this field.
But Bobby, you would think, here we are back with the Andrettis once again, and Michael's got his dad bottled up behind another car, and Michael moves around and closes in on Eddie Cheever.
That's the easiest way to pass. Get a guy bogged down in traffic, or his dad was taking one line, the guy in front just blocked him, Michael goes another way.
Eddie Cheever is a lap off the pace, running in 12th place. And now Michael comes around Eddie, as does Mario, and that fight really continues.
Eddie Cheever came from road racing. You know, it means that Michael and Mario have a lot more experience in Milwaukee than he does.
The pace overall is slowing as the leaders are very concerned now. You can tell about this fuel issue. The lap speeds have gone up. I mean, the lap times have gone up a second in the last 5 laps.
Well, we have been green right from the start of this race. We're now 50 miles into it, 1/4 the distance, and we are averaging 141.5 miles an hour. Rick Gallus, is he concerned about his fuel consumption?
He is, but I'll tell you, a lot of these cars now have telemetry, or they have onboard computers, so that people understand it. It transmits to the pits what they're doing fuel mileage-wise. These guys are sitting down there working their calculators, their computers, and some of them are going to be told it's going to be close. Now, I know it's too early in the race to call it too strong that way, but believe me, here they turn a lot of RPM, and they're off of the gas very little on each lap.
And everybody carries the memory with them of what happened at the last lap of last year's race when Michael Andretti, who had convincingly led the race to that point, coasted to a stop out of fuel. That was last year.
two Scotts battle here in an announcer's nightmare. Scott Brayton and Scott Pruitt. They battle right now for 11th place as they move their way up through the field, actually for 7th place, as they're closing down on Bobby Rahal. And look at Scott Brayton as he gets inside Rahal. Scott Pruitt in that True Sports All-American car is side by side with Rahal. They come off the 4th turn. Brayton picks up the speed. Scott Pruitt gets around Bobby Rahal, and they move forward.
I can't escape the idea that Rahal got past there because he's conserving fuel. He was so aggressive earlier. He has one of the best teams and strategists, and Barry Green behind him. I think he knows what he's doing. Whereas these two men, Brayton and Pruitt, who you just see running there, Pruitt in the all-red car, have not done well so far this year, and they're seizing this opportunity to run in the first few.
Okay, but let's keep in mind, Sam, that this is still early in the race. Nobody's come into the pits, adjusted their cars. Some of the chassis are going off right now, just like we heard about. One of the Andretti cars is going off. Well, I think Bobby Rahal could be going off too, because I don't think he's trying to save that much fuel yet.
Well, as we watch the battle between Brayton and Pruitt, Rahal is only about 3 seconds from being lapped by the leader, his teammate Al Unser Jr. But here is Pruitt trying to set up Brayton.
Now, another thing to keep in mind, Rahal and Little Al. During the practice, Rahal has consistently been the fastest. In qualifying, he was the fastest. Now in the race, it's typical what Little Al does, in case anybody is wondering. He doesn't practice, nor does he qualify real fast on the oval tracks. But once the green flag falls, he becomes a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of a driver.
56 laps are complete. There's the race summary after 50 laps. The average speed, 141.8 miles an hour. At that time, the race record held by Al Unser Jr. set last year, 133.6 miles an hour. Now, Bobby Unser, if we're at the 57th lap now, 57th mile, where will the stops come?
The stop should come around 64 laps.
There goes Pruitt. There goes Pruitt as he picks off Brayton. They move down inside Mashusta.
That's a triumph of a car that is out handling another car. Very good handling by Pruitt's True Sports car.
If they don't have, I started to say, Paul, if they don't have yellow flags that come up.
Boy, look at Pruitt now. Look at Pruitt again, Bobby, as he comes inside of Fittipaldi. Pruitt is definitely on a run.
He's on a move. He's handling good. Watch him. He's doing it in the turns, too, because we know he doesn't have all that much horsepower.
While by contrast, Emerson Fittipaldi right behind him in the white and orange car seems to be backing up through this field.
Yeah, Fittipaldi is running in 12th, and he has not had a good weekend.
We're in lap 59, coming around lap 60 right now, Paul. I'm starting to say they're going to have to stop around 64 to 65 laps in order to make the 200 laps of the race is.
Scott Brayton got around Fittipaldi as well, and as a matter of fact, Hiro Mashusta has come up to the outside of Fittipaldi along with Scott Goodyear. So Scott Goodyear just behind Fittipaldi, and then Mashusta right behind him, and they're both in a challenging position with Fittipaldi.
I'm already seeing signboards out, says pit. I see one that says pit 2. Now, this is going to start making the difference. After this, we're going to start figuring out for the folks just exactly what the game plans are going to be.
Watch Fittipaldi. He isn't even coming out close to the walls. He must be very tentative in that car right now.
Fittipaldi seemingly very uncertain as the first of the cars now begin to take a hard look at pit road. Scott Brayton being one of those as Scott Goodyear goes around Emerson Fittipaldi. And Goodyear moves into 12th place. Fittipaldi continuing to fall backward. There's Scott Brayton making his first stop of the day, and he makes it on lap 61.
And that's too early, Paul. That means that he's going to have to go into a 4-stop race unless he really makes fuel mileage somewhere. But he's got a Chevrolet engine, as you can see on the TV screen. He can't make any better mileage than the other guys.
15.5 seconds in and out for Scott Brayton, as in the Newman Haas pits. They look for their cars, Mario and Michael Andretti, and Al Unser Jr. continues running a torrid pace here, averaging now 141 miles an hour.
And let's also keep in mind that on board in the cars, like little Al's right there with the Chevrolet engines, for sure they have a little meter that tells you.
There's Jeff Andretti coming in.
That tells you how much fuel that you've used.
And the leader of the race, Al Unser Jr., rolls into his pit for quick service from the Gallus Craco organization. Let's go down there. Al Unser Jr. makes his stop. Everything routine to this point, but of course he gives up the lead. 12 seconds running through. Stop goes just a tick long, now 14.2 seconds. That's a pretty good stop.
Yes, it is, and it shows that he's very happy with the car because there were no chassis adjustments made that we could see.
Here is Scott Pruitt, as as they change all 4 on that car. And here is Fittipaldi coming in as well.
All right, now let's see what they do to Elmo's car right here. So far, we don't see any chassis adjustments coming at all.
Let's go to Gary Gerould.
They're talking about, Paul, making a wing adjustment and a tire pressure change. The balance has not been good, but the fuel mileage has been great for Emerson. That's very much on everybody's mind, and that could come into play after the final pit stop. Now they get ready for his teammate Rick Mears.
Now,
Emerson back into the fight. What do you see on the change?
okay, what they did was change the left front wing. But what he's saying is that the fuel mileage is good too, Paul. Here's Rick Mears in now.
Rick Mears is in, Gary.
Indeed he is, and he's up on the jacks quickly. New asphalt here in the pit area. They had to put some quick core concrete down in the heat so that the jacks would take hold and not sink into the asphalt. There were no problems in the final practice yesterday. Now Mears lights up the tires as he digs out on the new surface back to the racetrack.
Nice stop for Rick Mears as Mario Andretti, who is running second behind Michael, comes in the pits. And let's go to Jerry Punch.
Mario Andretti, first pit stop of the day. All 4 tires. They make a front wing adjustment here, trying to fuel the car. The chassis been doing very well, but they are very concerned about the fuel mileage. Very concerned from engineer Tony Cicala as Mario Andretti pulls away.
Maybe one of the best of the stops at 14.2 seconds. Bobby Rahal rolls in. Now remember, his teammate Little Al has already been in, so Bobby Rahal, who has been running a much more conservative race. And Bobby Unser, let's take a look for any changes on that car. Yep, left front wing.
All right, now what that means, the same thing that Mario got, only more on Rahal's. They let the wing down on the left front.
And here he is, the leader of the race in, Jerry Punch.
Scheduled pit stop for Michael Andretti. Remember, he had a loose problem. They were going to try to adjust the tire pressure a little bit and also make a wing adjustment. They changed all 4 tires, and now they make a major right front wing adjustment. They're holding the car, make sure they get the wicker bill replaced in the rear of the car, and now he's off the jack and away. So a major chassis adjustment to try to cure the loose problem for Michael Andretti.
And it burned off a little extra time, almost 16 seconds as Michael Andretti in and out. Rest of the cars cycling in, and the real question is going to be how the mileage went as we take a look back at the leader of the race. Well, he made it to at least 67 laps, and that ought to be just long enough, but it's a surprise with the pace that he's been setting. So Al Unser Jr. is back in front of the race here. The first set of pit stops have gone and come and gone. Well, the race rolls on with no caution flags whatsoever. Al Unser Jr. made it in and out of the pits to resume the lead of the race. But look at this. Michael Andretti is right up and challenging. And Michael Andretti moves around Al Unser Jr. Michael Andretti picks up the lead of the race. Now, Michael, in doing this, becomes the only driver to lead in every race so far this year. Michael Andretti back out in front. Let's get an update on the status of things from Gary Gerould.
And Paul, here's the problem. The problem for Al Unser Jr. and probably the reason he lost the lead. Rick Gallus told us while we were in that break, our concern is a miss in the engine. It came unexpectedly. It came about 7 or 8 laps ago. How much that's going to play into the scenario, now we can only wait and see. But certainly it's cost him, it would seem, the lead of this race after that tremendous charge from 10th place on the starting grid.
So approaching the halfway point, 75 miles. Michael Andretti is back out in front, followed by Little Al, then Rick, then Mario, and there is Rick Gallus. Concerned now with not just fuel, but with the performance of the Chevrolet engine in Al Unser Jr.'s car.
Well, Paulie's obviously, as the car goes by, we can hear it missing. See, it's not running good. He can keep his momentum up good because it's really been handling super good, but he's having a hard time passing. He should have shot by Cheevers right there, but he just barely makes it.
Remember that after Indianapolis of last year, as you see Little Al duel with Eddie Cheever, Little Al on the outside, the blue and white car. After Indianapolis last year, he came out of there with the championship lead. He won this race, and he went on to win the championship quite handily. Now this year he comes out of Indianapolis back in 4th place with only 42 points compared to Rick Mears' 58. He badly needs some points here if he's going to repeat as PPBG champion.
You are on board with Eddie Cheever. There's Little Al. Boy, look at him cut through there. That's Danny Sullivan that tucks in behind him, and that was real close, believe me.
It's not likely that an engine can miss and run the race all day. The miss will probably develop into something worse.
Look at the number 3 car. That's Rick Mears. He's back on a roll again. They've made some changes to that car, and it appears to be working. as Rick Mears comes up behind Danny Sullivan. Not a battle for position. Rick is actually running in third place, trying to catch up to second place Al Unser Jr.
After the Indy 500 last week, Rick permitted himself to be wined and dined and honored and interviewed from Indianapolis to New York and back again. Obviously, that has not distracted him from the main job of driving his racing car. He had the pole position, and he's driving a very canny race, now starting to move back up through the ranks.
Now, as you watch Rick right there, you'll see that he's clear at the bottom of the racetrack. That groove, for example, that Rick has been using goes back into the 80s or the 70s. In other words, he's not running any place the other guys are.
So Rick Mears tries to fight his way through the field to catch Al Unser Jr. in second, perhaps even move into first place. Currently occupied by Michael Andretti. Now, next Saturday, ABC Sports has a triple header of great action at 1 o'clock Eastern. The Senior Tour's Best meet as Mazda presents the Senior Tournament Players Championship. And then live at 3 o'clock, it's the $110,000 Showboat Senior Invitational. And at 4:30 Eastern live, ABC's Wide World of Sports presents the final jewel in the Chrysler Triple Crown Challenge, the Belmont Stakes. That's all next Saturday here on ABC Sports. Back with Eddie Cheever as he works the backstretch here on the Milwaukee Mile. Nice, flat, and very fast. And there is Rick Mears, who has now closed down on Al Unser Jr. Al, remember, is having an engine problem, and Rick is right there ready to get him.
And you can see the difference. I'm not too sure that both those cars aren't having problems right now, but look at them through the turns and then compare the straightaway. Paul, I really think that Rick's having problems too.
Rick Mears, not too much trouble getting past little Al, though the point is well taken, Bobby Unser. Michael Andretti is driving a superlative race.
You see that's Shelley Unser, of course, Al's wife. You see so much emotion reflected on her face earlier when he was surging through the pack and taking the lead. Now she's a little more subdued, thinking, what's going on out there?
So there's Rick, the Indianapolis 500-mile race champion, as he cycles down inside of Tony Bettenhausen in the number 16 car, Chevrolet-powered machine. And Rick works his way around. Little Al, you can see, falling considerably backwards. Let's get an update from Gary Gerould.
Paul, just checking with Richard Bruck, crew chief on the Penske team for Rick Mears. They like the balance. The race car's okay. They're saying about fuel consumption, marginal is the word they're using. They've tried to relax the pace, keep within distance of the leader. That seems to be the ongoing strategy right now for Rick Mears. Also, a quick note on Bobby Rahal. Off that last pit stop, the first of the race, the right rear was badly worn. It's a new compound here. The balance, of course, can impact that, but Rahal had a problem with the right rear tire that was extremely worn on his first stop.
And as you can see, Al Unser Jr. dropped out of third place and comes into the pit.
Negative.
And Owen Snyder and the crew going to work on that car with the cowling coming off. And Bobby, that means that this engine problem is more than just a little problem.
These engines are so hi-fi, they're so intricate. You can't turn these things 12,500 RPM and have a miss without something bad being wrong. What they're changing there is the electrical box, the brain of the car. It operates everything, fuel injection, ignition, everything. But Paul, it's not likely that that's the problem. The problem could be like a valve come loose or something like that in the engine.
Michael Andretti threads his way through traffic, comes around his cousin John Andretti as he continues to run in the lead of this race with 88 miles complete. And Al Unser Jr. now breathes heavily as he sits in the pits waiting for them to repair his car, but the field is rolling past so very quickly. It seems like a hopeless pass, and Al Unser Jr. agrees with it. So out in front of the field, it is Michael Andretti, followed by Rick Mears and then Mario Andretti. We'll be back with more of the Miller Genuine Draft 200 after this message and a word from our ABC stations. And the fight now at Milwaukee is for third place. Mario Andretti is there right now, but that red car right behind him, that's none other than Scott Pruitt, number 11, who is challenging Mario Andretti and trying to take third place away. In the meantime, that is Michael, who is the leader of the race, who is running just behind them.
What you're seeing here, Scott Pruitt in the red car, this is one of the biggest moments, if not the biggest, in his life as a racing driver. Remember, he was badly injured last spring, 16 months ago. His legs were badly beaten up. He missed all of last year's season. You see him battling now. He has never run this high in an IndyCar race before, this solidly early in the game. He did have 1 second place 2 years ago, but this is the best he's done. And remember, it is with a brand new chassis built all in the United States.
And of course, he battles with a master, Mario Andretti. Pruitt's best finish on an oval came here in 1989 when he finished 5th. Now, if fuel is the question, Bobby Unser, what about Pruitt? Does he have, with a different engine, the Judd engine, a better opportunity?
Well, not really, Paul, and I'm going to tell you why. That engine first came out, it was the best computered engine that there was. But now the Chevrolet has got up and done just as good on the computer. The difference being is it does produce less horsepower than the Chevrolet engine, so therefore he may make better mileage from
watch
that.
this. Pruitt's going to try him everywhere. He poked his nose inside. Mario slammed the door on him. Now he's trying outside, and I hope he stays aware of the fact that Michael Andretti is just behind him.
But Michael is going to be a lap ahead when he does that. In other words, they really don't want to worry about Michael because, hey, he's worried about Scott Pruitt's worried about Mario.
I just want to make sure he doesn't recognize that he recognizes Michael's there and doesn't cut him off. You look from on board Michael Andretti. That's the fight just ahead.
You know, man, and you know, it just might be that Michael is sitting looking at that. Nobody's pushing him really close and saying, boy, my daddy's having a heck of a job up there. I better leave him alone for a bit.
And Bobby, notice too that although Pruitt is relatively inexperienced in IndyCar ranks, you notice the Andrettis, who are very experienced, are not afraid to run very close to him. He's a clean driver with a marvelous reputation. He won the opening race of this year in the IROC Championship, and of course he's having just a fabulous day right here.
We just completed the halfway point, 100 miles in this 200-mile run, and Al Unser Jr. made a stop for 5 minutes, came in after making that stop, and they're still working on the car. And look at Scott Pruitt as he tries inside of Mario once again. And Scott Pruitt still can't get it done, but the fight continues, and Michael is closing in. Now this battle is having a bit of an effect on Michael as well, as Michael is being held up a little bit. Now there's traffic just ahead of Mario. Let's see how the master handles it as we watch from his son's car, the leader of the race. The traffic runs just ahead. Scott Pruitt lines up, and then Pancho Carter that moves over and gives way to Mario as he comes through. Now if Pancho becomes aware of Scott back there as well. Pancho, of course, that's the car that Mark Dismore was scheduled to be in, but Mark's still recovering from his injuries in Indianapolis, though the report is he is at home and doing very well. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
He wipes the perspiration. A tremendous drive to go from 10th to 1st, reminiscent of last year with the victory. Electronics, is that the problem, Al, that puts you out? Electronics?
Well, I really don't know what it was. We had a miss. It started to miss on the parade lap, and it kind of cleaned up a little bit, and then it was running really good, and you know, we guessed right on our setup, I guess, but it started backfiring and missing really bad, and that's what happened to us.
What accounted for the dramatic change? You struggled all weekend, and you were in the 5th row. Why were you so much better today?
Well, I really don't know. I changed the car quite a bit last night, and it worked. And I think with the tires, they're really good at brand new, and then they tend to go away as the track gets more running on and the tires get more run on. And I think that's what happened to everybody, is they kind of slowed down, and I stayed the same.
It was great while it lasted. Sorry you're out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and there is Scott Pruitt as he now moves alongside of Mario. Can he hold on to it?
Yes.
Yeah, he's got Mario. Scott Pruitt has got past Mario. A brilliant pass on the main stretch. And there is Michael, who is still in the lead of this race and right there with him.
A pass on the outside, Paul. I tell you, that's a hard pass.
There's Rick Mears, second place, coming up to challenge Michael.
Whoa!
And boy, that's a pretty easy pass. Either Rick is working real well or Michael decided to let him go through. What do you think?
Well, I think it's Michael not working quite as well. Rick has just been about the same all day. Remember, Rick is probably the most experienced oval track driver that we have here today. He's thinking more at the end of the race. And his boss, Roger Penske, and he's smart on that stuff, too.
Yes, Rick was first to recognize what seemed to be the fuel problems, wasn't he? Of the very fast, there's his wife, Chris Mears, of course, we saw so ecstatic after the big Indy win last week. But Rick was the first of the front runners to start dropping off the pace so quickly.
So if you look just ahead of Rick Mears, that's Mario Andretti. So Rick is trying to push Mario a lap down, and Mario is running in 4th place right now.
Rick has led in 9 of the last 11 races on 1-mile ovals and won 4 of them. Might he be the new master of oval track racing? Many think that he is.
And there goes Rick under Mario. That's Arie Luyendyk that sits just ahead of Rick right now on the racetrack. But Arie, of course, is back in the order as Rick is carving his way up through this field and really on a roll now. 109 miles are complete.
Arie is a guy that, like at Phoenix, Paul, many people didn't think he was going to be as strong as he was. He came on exceptionally strong, won the race very decisively. Here today at Milwaukee, I expected him to be a lot faster than he seems to be.
Let's get an update on Michael Andretti from Jerry Punch. Jerry?
Well, you saw Michael a minute ago not put up much of a battle when he was passed by Rick, and the reason is Michael has developed a vibration on the car. They think they may have cut a tire or may have a tire going down. Remember, the same problem occurred at Indianapolis Motor Speedway just a week ago, and again, Michael suffering from a significant vibration. They're about 15 to 16 laps away from their scheduled pit stop. They're going to try to hang on. Paul?
Well, you remember a week ago at Indianapolis, as you take a look at Carl Haas, there was a question about whether or not Mario deliberately caused a yellow to try and help his son Michael. We asked him that very question here at Milwaukee.
No, because the engine let go between turn 1 and 2. And in fact, and I looked back when I came out of 2 and there was no smoke, so I said, oh my, I wonder if it's just a gearbox, because it happened in practice. I picked up another gear, and of course it was the engine, and that slowed me down considerably. When I'm between 3 and 4, I told the pits, I says, I'm going to be creating a yellow. I said, I hope Michael needs it. I says, because I'm going to be creating a yellow. And so I kept going, and when I saw I couldn't make clear the entry of the pit, so I just kind of stopped there, because I didn't want to choke the entry, because in case somebody at the last second would have to make a pit stop. So I thought maybe they would even leave me there for that matter, but I didn't create anything that, that was in my control.
Mario Andretti, he now runs down in 4th place. The leader of the race is Rick Mears. By the way, fans of Kevin Kogan will want to know that he is still at Methodist Hospital of Indianapolis, so he's now listed in good condition with fractures of the right leg and arm. He was operated on last week by Terry Trammell. I'm sure he'd appreciate your card. We'll be back. Here's the lineup with 119 miles of the Miller Genuine Draft 200 complete, with Rick Mears out in front. You're looking backwards from Eddie Cheever's car. That's Arie Luyendyk, who has been battling at the back of the 10th place Cheever for some time now. Now, it's not a battle for position, because Luyendyk is up in 7th place, but he'd love to get around Cheever and continue to push Cheever further back in the field.
Notice that there were 3 Andrettis in the top 5. Of course, there were 4 in this race when the race started. Just 21 cars, so almost 1 out of 5 in this field was an Andretti.
At the front of the field, Rick Mears. As exotic as these Indy cars are, they're also very adaptable to different types of racing. Jerry Punch takes a look now at some changes made for the race at Milwaukee.
To the casual observer, this Indy car may look identical to the one Al Unser finished 4th with at Indianapolis a week ago, but it is vastly different. At Indianapolis, at speeds of 230 miles an hour, there's a tremendous amount of downforce or ground effects beneath the car, which keeps the car glued to the racetrack. Now, here at Milwaukee on a short oval, the cornering speeds are only about 130 miles an hour, so you lose a lot of that ground effects. You must make up that downforce with this multifaceted or multi-flap wing. This 5-element wing tries to maximize the downforce while minimizing drag. This wing may look similar to what you see on an airplane, and it is. Actually, you turn the wing upside down, and it looks like an airplane wing at full flaps trying to land. Basically, it's maximum lift in this configuration. Flip it over, and it's maximum downforce. Now, other more subtle changes for a car on a short oval, well, the brakes are allowed to have ductwork to keep them cool. With acceleration and deceleration, you get a lot of brake heat, and they're allowed to duct them here as opposed to a speedway. The roll hoop behind the driver's head must be 4 inches above the top of the helmet for safety. The wheelbase on the car can be shortened as much as 2 inches. The shorter wheelbase allows the car to respond quicker in the turns for shorter radius turns such as Milwaukee. And an even more subtle change, the offset of the front tires, 1 inch to the right, therefore putting more weight on the left side of the car and minimizing the abuse of the right front tire. This car may look the same, but it's a vastly different animal here at Milwaukee.
And back in the action, Arie Luyendyk, as he continues the fight with Eddie Cheever. By the way, Vince Granatelli, the car owner, figured out without that pit stop last year, as there goes Luyendyk around, that Arie would have been out in front by 80 seconds at the end of the Indianapolis 500. But of course, they had a very long stop. Here with a very long stop is Scott Pruitt. And he was running in third place when he came in, but now he stalled the engine. They have the new starter motor over the wall.
Notice as Scott Brayton pulls in right in front of Scott Pruitt, notice the black new asphalt there in the pits, all redone for this year. And one of the reasons, as you see Scott Brayton's car being worked on, the cars have come in so precisely and been able to stop right where they mean to, is because that new pit lane has such good grip.
So the 22 car of Scott Brayton in and out. And there's our leader, Rick Mears. When will he stop? And can he continue this pace to the end of the race? His average speed thus far is 140 miles an hour. That's 7 miles an hour faster than the race record.
Were he to keep up and win this race, Rick Mears, and you see Roger Penske there, his car owner, would have a stranglehold on the championship at this point.
Well, Rick Mears, you said it at the start of this race, Sam Posey is definitely the focus of the IndyCar world right now.
He's been working his lower groove, if you watch, Paul. He's right down at the bottom. Watch Rick when he goes in a turn now. Right down to almost on the grass. Now, he's the only car that's been there all day.
128 laps are complete. You already saw Scott Brayton make his pit stop, which seemed to be just a little bit early. Of course, he was not in the front of the order. And Rick Mears, Bobby, how far should he have to carry it?
Well, I don't think he's going to go much further than about lap 135, Paul. And he's going to be in.
And we have a yellow flag for the first time in this race. Comes in a most opportune moment. And no indication as the reason for the yellow. Certainly not a substantial impact. And here is Eddie Cheever in. There's the leader of the race, Rick Mears. You can see that Bobby Ray Hall is already in his pit. And Mears, will they make any changes on the car? Doesn't appear so. Just going to change all 4 tires and refuel it.
Of course, that's a good sign. If they don't do any changing on that, means he likes the car and he's handling good. The only thing he should have to worry about in that particular case is his mileage, Paul.
Yellow at lap 130. 70 laps yet to go. Bobby, that seems to say that there is going to be another pit stop, and very close to the end of the race as we watch Michael Andretti make his stop. And Luyendyk, he's stalled. They're trying to get him down and out of the way. And boy, look at Michael. Michael comes right around very quickly.
Very fortuitous moment for Michael for that yellow to come out, not unlike last week at Indianapolis when his dad's problems brought a yellow out for him when he needed it.
There is his dad, Mario Andretti. You saw Sullivan come in as they try to get Luyendyk back into his pit.
Okay, Paul, on the pit stop, so whether they're going to be able to make it or not will all depend on how long the yellow goes. If it goes long enough, no more stops.
Ooh,
Mario makes it out. His son Jeff is right behind him. So we're under yellow for the very first time in the run here at 131 laps. We're still under caution condition here on the Milwaukee Mile. As to why, let's get an update from Gary Gerould.
Well, Paul, it was contact. Scott Pruitt was involved. He got into the back end, we believe, Scott Brayton's car. Here is the nose. They already changed the nose and the front wing, and you can see where the side plate here on the right side is skewed out and where it's been torn away from the wing plate down on front. They made the change. Amazing that we've had so few instances of yellow or any contact on this busy racetrack. It's really been quite astounding. Paul?
And you saw Arie Luyendyk a moment ago as he started to climb out of the car, and they've decided that their day is done as well. Now next Sunday, of course, it'll be the World League World Pole, Barcelona versus London. You saw that marvelous overtime victory by London here today. Well, they wrap up the season next Sunday. Ready to go green once again as the green comes out. And the leader of the race, of course, is still Rick Mears. Look back through the field for Rick as Rick comes into the pits. Rick rolls into the pits under the green flag.
His engine
rolls right on through.
He was going too fast, but it sounds like his engine's missing. We've got to listen to it the next time around, Paul. I think he's lost the cylinder.
What a terrible blow for Rick Mears as Michael Andretti picks up the lead of the race. Rick rolled into the pits and rolled right back out.
Now let's watch him and see if he comes back around. If it is, means that he's lost a cylinder also, very much like little Al.
So we keep an eye on Rick Mears. And let's see where he's gone. He stays out, but the engine sounded off soft.
Sounds terrible. He's got 7 cylinders. I'm sure that that's the car that's making the noise as he goes by, Paul.
Why would that be a sudden onset like that? Here was Rick as he, just moments ago, as the green came out, this was Rick, rolled down to the pits and then decided to keep the car in the action.
Now, what would have happened there is Penske would have told him it does no good to come in, stay out, try to get it to clean out by itself, because it probably went bad under the yellow. And that is Rick's car that's going by. You can even almost hear it. It's only got 7 cylinders.
So Rick Mears struggles in second place. Roger Penske trying to talk it over with Richard Buck, his crew chief, and decide what they are going to do when Rick comes around.
Another one of the reasons they didn't stop before Penske didn't let him is they weren't ready for an engine missing. There was no reason to think that it might start missing at this particular time.
Roger Penske hates to hear his car running badly out on the track. He'd much rather try to work on it in the pits as fast as he can.
All right, Rick rolls into the pits. Gary Gerould waits.
And boy, the disappointment in this crew after the elation of Indianapolis a week ago. Mears hits the spot. He shuts the engine down. Richard Buck goes to work on the right side. They'll peel the cowling off. We saw a black box. We saw a battery. We saw another piece of electronic gear. They'll try to replace all of those, refire the engine, see if the problem has gone away. But this is going to deprive Rick Mears of a possible another victory here at Milwaukee. Let's go to Jerry Punch.
Also disappointment here in the Vince Granatelli pits. I'm with Ari Leidenbach. You're talking to car owner Granatelli. And Ari, a tough break for you. What put you out?
Well, I was having a pretty good run. We started the RCA car in 14th place and moved straight up to 8th. And it was, you know, it was going pretty good, but going into turn 3, I wanted to turn left and the car just went straight. Something broke in the right rear and it made the left front of the car come up in the air. And I mean, I pulled every trick in the book to keep it off the wall, and I think that's why they threw the yellow, because they thought I was going to hit it for the wall. But luckily enough, I was able to bring it back in. But it's too bad, you know. It's too bad we didn't get points for this race and get the CNG car up there in front and get some more points. It's too bad.
Tough break for Ari Leidenbach after a great run a week ago at Indianapolis. Paul?
Well, try this out. The rundown, first through third. Andretti. It's Michael in first. John in second. Mario in third. Bobby Rahal runs in fourth. Scott Brayton is fifth. Danny Sullivan in the Alpha-powered car is sixth. And Rick Mears is falling rapidly through the field right now. Now, also notice, now with Leyendyke out and with Al Unser Jr. out, that's really going to scramble the points because neither one of them will score a point at this race. So a tremendous change here with Rick Mears out of the action. Michael Andretti back into the front of the field.
You watch John Andretti in the yellow car to the left. Of course, right now, John is running second. Now, he needs this, Paul. He's had a little bit of bad luck, but, of course, he won Australia early in the year. This is going to scramble everything entirely in the race. All these guys are going to get a new boost because they know that Little Al is out and Rick Mears is out, two of the favorites.
And there's A.J. Foyt as he comes to the end. Oh, look at that. Motor. Telltale smoke at the back of the car. Motor, turbo, somewhere there. Boy, what a rough time he's having.
And what an ovation he got from this crowd when he was introduced just minutes before the start of the race.
We'll see what happens when he rolls around here. Tremendous crowd here in Milwaukee. Rick Mears, by the way, has rolled back into the pits. Michael Andretti, the leader of the race.
Now, most likely, Foyt's going to bring a yellow out, Paul. I don't think he can coast all the way in. I think he's going to stop on the racetrack, create another yellow. Otherwise, it was going to be extremely close on whether they were going to have to make another pit stop or not before the end.
Well, let's say they don't. AJ is just at the head of the pit road. They may be able to get him off the course without a yellow. And let's say, as Rick Mears, they're now changing plugs on that machine.
He's going to make it, Paul. He's going to make it into the pits without causing yellow.
So AJ makes it to the pits. We've had only one yellow. Say we go without a yellow, Bobby. Will there be another stop for Michael, and where will it come?
Well, I think what they're going to be forced to do is to back off a little bit more, maybe back a little boost out of the engine. They're going to have to go for it because there's only like a 2-lap difference or deficit on whether they can make it or not. So they're going to have to start making mileage now.
So Andretti's first, second, and third. Michael, then John, then Mario. Here with 147 miles of the 200-mile distance complete. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. 153 miles complete. You want to bet on an Andretti? First, second, and third. Michael, John, Mario, then Bobby Rahal and Scott Brayton. But Michael Andretti is on a lap all by himself. John and Mario are battling with one another, but they are a full lap behind Michael.
Now, Bell, we're back to that fuel deal again. What's really going to happen here is Michael is in the only lap by himself, as you said, but he's the one that's going to be close on fuel. He's going to cut his fuel mileage or his boost back. He's going to coast as much as he can or back off the throttle as much as he can. The other guys have a lap less to run. And running in with that fight, you see him trying inside of Mario is Danny Sullivan. He is 3 laps off the pace, running in 6th place. Now, on an oval, a car needs to respond to a driver's every need. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. Danny Sullivan takes a look at oversteer and understeer in this week's Tip from the Cockpit.
Well, understeer or push, that's what we call it a lot in America, is when the front end is not biting the way that you want to. There's not the grip. It's a little bit like being on a wet or snowy road and you go and turn into the corner and the front end's just sliding out and you can't get the grip that you want. On the other hand, oversteer or loose, the same terms, is when the back end is sliding and trying to go away from you into the corner. In oversteer, like a dirt car or a sprint car, they're set up to oversteer when the back end slides around. The difference between understeer and oversteer emotionally, physically in the car is that understeer at a place like Milwaukee where you come down the straightaway, you turn into the corner, it's just frustrating because you can't get the front end and you want to pick up the throttle and you know you can't pick up the throttle right now and get back on the gas because the front end's not working. The difference to oversteer is that oversteer, when you enter the corner and the back starts to come around like this, it's like, oh my God, I'm holding on here, I'm right on the edge. I want to get back on the throttle to settle the car down, but I have to be very, very careful and very precise. Mechanically, to fix understeer or oversteer, it just depends on where your car is. The easiest is just to, if you have understeer, is to add a little bit more front wing in the car, which will tend to plant the front end of the car and give you more bite. The rear, it's the same. You can put maybe a little bit more rear wing in the car. But what you try to do during the course of practice is try to fix that mechanically so you don't destroy your car aerodynamically and give it too much drag down the straightaway. When I first started racing, the way that understeer and oversteer were described to me was that understeer is when you go and your front end hits the wall first, and oversteer is when you go in and your back end hits the wall first.
Well, Danny Sullivan runs in 6th place, 3 laps behind the leaders in his Alfa Romeo-powered machine. The leader of the race is Michael Andretti. And Michael is on a lap all by himself, and because of that, his crew has been trying to advise him, Michael, you really don't have to run hot. Find a comfortable place and stay there. Now, there always, though, is a danger, Bobby Unser, and as a race driver, trying to slow down, isn't there? Well, there is, but he has no choice. Now, he has this race in the palm of his hand without any problems. So it's just a question. Again, is he smart enough, and will he be obedient enough to do what the pit's telling him? Now, one of the ways he'll do it is when he goes down the turns, he'll roll out of the throttle easy and let the car coast a lot, and therefore not use an awful lot of throttle, but don't use any brakes. That's the easiest way to make mileage. Eddie Cheever and Emerson Fittipaldi, as they battle for 8th place. Cheever is in 8th at the moment, and Fittipaldi, who has not had his best of days here on the Milwaukee Mile, has been trying to catch up to Cheever, but Fittipaldi has definitely been staying in the fight. By the way, we want to send out goodwill wishes to Gary Rothman, who normally would be directing this show with us. He's at home in a hospital after the Indy race. He had to head home. Gary, we hope you're doing better.
Eddie Cheever spent part of the winter working on his garden. You see him there in the all-red car just ahead of Emerson Fittipaldi, and writing short stories, which I mentioned back at the Long Beach race, and everyone was fascinated. Well, what were those short stories that Eddie was writing all about? The answer is we're probably not going to know. He's a very private person about his creative work. There's Scott Pruitt slowing down. The number 11 car, Scott Pruitt. Boy, it's too bad he was in 7th place and had such a nice day. No indication as to what might be wrong there for Scott. And I think, Paul, that he has really shown the American people that American car built in America can be fast, because to date,
He was very fast in the corners. I think he's still a little shy on the engine department, but he was certainly good in the turns.
In the pits, they keep track of John Andretti. Look at Fittipaldi as Fittipaldi gets right up alongside and squeezes in between the slower car of Pruitt and Eddie Cheever as they come on the front stretch. Can Fittipaldi get past them on the inside? No, Cheever a little bit faster into the corner. Cheever is still trying to hold off Fittipaldi, and Fittipaldi was all the way down into the grass on that corner. Now he comes onto the backside, and the battle leads off a little bit.
Fittipaldi is not running either, Paul. He's got something wrong with his engine because he's too slow. He's not only slow in the corners, but he's slow in the straightaways also.
And a yellow flag showing again, apparently for debris on the track. Yellow flag comes out because Scott Pruitt did not make it all the way into the pits. They had hoped he would, but the yellow flag now comes out on the 166th mile with Scott Pruitt sitting right at the entrance to the pits. We'll be back with more from Milwaukee. Still under the second yellow of the day with 169 miles complete. Michael Andretti is out in front. This caution period should put the fuel question totally out of any discussion. But remember, Michael Andretti was leading here last year on the very last lap when suddenly his car ran out of fuel. They seem much more confident of that here today as the pace car rolls off and we come back to speed on the 170th lap. Michael Andretti a full lap over the rest of the field. 6 times Michael has won races on ovals. In 3 of them he has lapped the entire field. We asked Michael what changes were made, if any, from last year to prevent running out of fuel with just 1 lap to go.
Well, we've changed our procedure for one. Then it was more the pit calling the shots and me not really knowing where I was at. Where now I know every lap where I am on fuel because I'm giving the fuel readings on the pit board, so I can watch and judge for myself. So you know, I think that'll make it a lot better. And also last year we didn't get all the fuel in on the last stop. You know, it was about a half a gallon short, which is all we would have needed to win the race.
In 1987, Michael won this race, but it was a day of mixed emotions because his dad, Mario, was badly hurt in a crash, and Michael spent those last few laps going around the track wondering how his dad was. Today, he need not worry. His dad is comfortably installed in 3rd place.
Well, comfortably installed, but trying desperately to catch up with his own nephew in that bright yellow car. That's John Andretti, who runs in 2nd place right now. By the way, other racing here in Milwaukee, Robbie Groff won the Indy Lights race. And get this, in Montreal, Nelson Piquet won the Formula One. Now let's go down to Gary Carroll.
Paul, in the John Andretti pit, he needs to make up the lap. But one of the key things, Larry Curry, the team manager with Jim Hall and the Hall VDS team, very concerned yesterday. They were only getting 1.5 miles per gallon on fuel. But for the first time this year, they have onboard telemetry. They had it at Indianapolis, didn't use it in the race. They're using it today. Curry told us that the yellows mean that they can get as much as 5 to 6 miles per gallon. When you're racing, you've got to hit that 1.8 miles per gallon. They said it was going to be very close, but this last yellow certainly has eased them now to the positive side. John running in 2nd, chasing a lap down his cousin Michael. Paul?
Well, there he is, John Andretti. Won his first race at Australia, and a real oval master. His Uncle Mario is right behind him. Andretti's run 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
And I notice I've been clocking Michael Andretti, Paul, and he slowed down about a half a second a lap. Now, in my opinion, he could slow down a little bit more than that and guarantee his mileage a little better, but I'm sure that his crew's telling him exactly where he is on the mileage.
The only hope of the Penske organization, and not much of a hope at that, Emerson Fittipaldi runs in 8th place. Just in front of him there is Cheever, and just behind him is Scott Goodyear.
Emerson is just not going fast, mostly from power. He just doesn't have any speed today, and I don't think it's a lack of Emil's trying, because if there was ever a left foot racing, it's Emerson Fittipaldi.
But this track has not been, there's Pancho Carter in the Archero car. This has not been a kind track to Emerson. The best he's ever finished here, I was going to say, is 3rd.
And Pancho is, well, I don't think he's going to make it around, so they're probably going to go yellow once again. We've had no yellow for really a major incident. We had a little touch. No wall bangers here at the track. Pancho tries to get it chugging,
He's going to make it in all the way
in. He makes it into the pits, and that helps out the race itself tremendously.
You know, I noticed with A.J. Foyt a little while ago, I have to mention this, Paul, that he could have stopped. It looked like he was going to be short by about 10 feet getting into the pits. He knew everybody wanted a yellow, needed a yellow, and yet A.J., just like Pancho Carter, went ahead and got off the track, let racing turn out the way it's supposed to be. In other words, no politics involved.
You saw Nancy Andretti watching her husband, John, as he works his way around in second place. Next Saturday, 1 o'clock Eastern, Mazda presents the Senior Tournament Players Championship. Dearborn, Michigan. Make sure you're with us for that. And then, of course, the $110,000 Showboat Senior Open Invitational Bowling. All coming up next Saturday. And then on Wide World of Sports, the Chrysler Triple Crown Challenge, the Belmont Stakes. All next Saturday right here on ABC Sports. Michael Andretti is out in front of the run here. And Emerson Fittipaldi continues his fight with Eddie Cheever for 7th place. We've had 2 caution periods. 180 miles are complete. And Michael's out in front. We'll be back. Back in Milwaukee, battle developing now for the 5th position with Danny Sullivan challenging Scott Brayton. Comparison of power, Chevrolet with Scott Brayton's car. Alfa Romeo power and Danny Sullivan's machine. Remember, that car for Danny ran very strong at Phoenix. Also had a pretty good run going at Indianapolis.
Now what they do with that Alfa engine, the one right, the black and gold car, that's the Alfa right there with Danny Sullivan, Paul, is they turn up the RPM. They run a lower gear in it. Now the Alfa hasn't been, it's a new engine. It hasn't been perfected for a lot of RPM yet. And it'll break occasionally, but they make a lot of power before it breaks. And I think today they're gambling on it because he's been running pretty good.
So Danny and Scott Brayton battle on the circuit, battle for 6th place. At the same time, not far back, Scott Goodyear, Hiro Matsushita, and Jeff Andretti are also beginning to close on one another. So yes, there is another Andretti. And there he is as Scott Brayton moves past him. That's Jeff. Jeff runs in 11th place.
Jeff was Rookie of the Year, of course, last week at Indianapolis. He's off to a wonderful season. And you see Matsushita there, the Japanese driver in the blue car, just on the right in the center of the screen.
And I have to mention Jeff Andretti, the black car, just right to the right on the screen there now. He has really been looking good. We've been watching him all year. He's the youngest of the Andrettis and really sets on the track in a nice place, Sam.
Well, you know, when you do things here, as at Indianapolis, they really have the ring of history to them. There's Nancy Andretti. The first IndyCar race was held back here in 1933, won by Wilbur Shaw, where the 3 Andrettis running up front to hang on and finish 1, 2, 3. I think this is a race that would be remembered for many years.
Well, with about 10 laps to go now, remember the pit stops are so very, very important. As a matter of fact, Texaco Haviland has established once again their pit stop competition to reward the crews for the fine job they do. Over $135,000 in total prize money can be earned by the team to prepare their cars for these CART IndyCar races. The Gallus Craco team of Al Unser Jr. proved why he won last year's competition by posting the quickest total pit time on pit road in the top 10 qualifiers in round number 1 in Long Beach. So Al Unser Jr. leads it. Rick Mears is in second.
Okay, Paul, we're 8 laps to go. Now, what we've got to watch and see is have the pit crews figured out the fuel. Did, for example, Michael's crew get all the fuel in that he could have taken, the full 40 gallons? Now, we're always assuming that they can pick up the 40 gallons, too, so now's when we're going to start seeing it.
Second place, John Andretti, one of the up-and-coming young drivers. Other drivers coming up. Let's go to Gary Gerould.
Well, Paul, here's one of the most exciting, and what a great weekend. Paul Tracy, who won the Indy Lights Championship last year, has a contract now with Roger Penske. You start testing this week. You're going to have a ride at Indianapolis next year. You have to be thrilled.
It's a tremendous opportunity for me to be involved with the Marlboro Racing Penske team. And it's just like, it's a dream come true, and I'm really looking forward to getting started.
We wish you well, Paul.
Thanks.
Paul Tracy, the future ahead of him. By the way, there was a question about the Buick power and whether or not they would change the rules to give the Buick more boost if it ran in the kart side of the series. And apparently the kart board has decided not to change the stability package that they have in the rules. Buick will remain in equal boost with the other engines.
And if the rumors we hear are true, Paul, it was the have-nots or the guys with the slowest engines that voted the Buick out. Probably because they didn't want the competition in.
At the front of the field, it is Michael Andretti. Remember, he was in this position a year ago. The fight continues between Eddie Cheever and Emerson Fittipaldi for 7th place. Emerson Fittipaldi has been fighting this ill-handling Penske all weekend, but he has stained some tenacity in this fight.
I think we're going to find out there was something seriously amiss in Emerson's car. Terribly disappointing for him, of course. He came so close to winning the Indianapolis 500 a week ago. Now he struggles all the way through this race.
Well, yesterday, they moved him back and forth between the primary and the backup car, made some changes to the engine system, to the oil tank. They were really working with the car. And Emerson, ever patient, stayed right with it all the way. Now he tries to catch Cheever. Cheever definitely pulls away on the straightaway. And right behind Fittipaldi, some closure occurring as well.
They're both Chevrolet engines, too. But, again, Emerson is not got the power, doesn't have the power today. Now there's John. Watch here. Let's see what he does on the straightaway. Dips right by Emo, you see.
Going into the corner. By the way, Scott Brayton has come into the pits for a quick stop.
Nancy Andretti. Remember, John Andretti is having his first really good showing on an oval with this new Paul VDS team. He won the opener this year, but it was on a road course down in Australia. So this proves the other side of this team's talent. You have to be good at the ovals. They're proving they can run up front.
You ride with the leader, Michael Andretti.
Michael told me,
Haviland Kmart machine. Looking for a white flag now.
He told me yesterday, no way we're going to run out of fuel this year. I hope he's right.
The white flag, 1 lap to go. It was at this point last year that he was devastated. But no, now he continues on at speed.
Halfway down the back straightaway, Paul, we know we can coast the rest of the way, so Michael should make it.
Michael Andretti, as the crew looks ahead, anticipating a win. If he comes all the way around to the checkered flag, the 15th win of young Michael Andretti's career. And now it's already in the record book. Michael Andretti for Nick Finauro's twin checkered flags. And Michael Andretti has won here at Milwaukee. Michael Andretti, who was so powerful at Indianapolis, but not powerful enough to take on Rick Mears. Rick Mears having his problems in the early going as John Andretti comes across the line in 2nd place. Mario Andretti will come across in 3rd, Bobby Rahal 4th, and Danny Sullivan in 5th. We'll be back right after this.